Energy has become a very hot topic today. It's not only a hot topic, because of its penetration into diverse sectors, it has become a very complex problem today. Because of that, we thought of creating a dedicated video series to talk about energy affairs and also the opportunities it is creating in just about every sector that we can think of. So if you are interested in energy affairs, or if you would like to capitalize the opportunities the energy transition creates for you, please follow this video lesson series. I think you will be able to gain a very good insight into the current affairs in the energy landscape. In this first video, I'm going to talk about the evolution of the energy. But before that, let us see why energy has become such an important and such a hot topic today. It is inevitable that our activities are making certain damages to the environment, but the environment is competent enough to revert these damages and giving us a fresh planet Earth. But unfortunately, in certain areas, we are exceeding the capacity of the nature. And some of the damages that we are making to the environment cannot be recovered. There are three such key areas that we call as triple planetary crisis. Remember these terms because these scientific terms are very important for scientific discussion. The first crisis that we have created is air pollution. More than 90% of the global population breathe unhealthy air. Because of that, nearly 7 million people die prematurely every year because of diseases created by the poor air quality. The pathetic side of the story is nearly 200 to 300,000 kids aged below 5 dies because of this poor air quality. The second crisis that we have created is the loss of biodiversity. We are taking enormous services from the nature that we call as ecosystem services. The biodiversity is instrumental for these ecosystem services. When the biodiversity is affected adversely, that will in turn adversely affect the ecosystem services. And as a result, that will adversely affect our food security. The third crisis that we have created is the climate change. Increase in the global temperature drives the climate change. Actually, increase in the global temperature is a natural phenomenon. That's how we escape from the ice age. But here the problem is unprecedented rate of global warming. That is because of our excessive releasing of the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. You all know carbon dioxide is a major greenhouse gas. When we release quite a lot of greenhouse gas emission to the atmosphere, it increases the global temperature. This graph shows the variation of the atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration over last 800,000 years. The units of measurements is ppm, that is parts per million. Over this period, the carbon dioxide concentration varies from 180 ppm to about, let's say, 300 ppm. It's a kind of a cyclic variation over this period. But you can see this period, it is increasing incredibly. The right portion of the graph shows the carbon dioxide concentration variation from 1950 to 2021. You can clearly see how it is increasing rapidly. And importantly, it has exceeded 400 ppm in the period between 2010 and 2020. It's a well-known fact that if the carbon dioxide concentration exceeds 400 ppm, it will not go down. And if we continue to release carbon dioxide this way, the concentration will easily go beyond 450. The final result is global warming. Scientists have already estimated if we continue our business as usual scenarios, by end of this century, the global temperature will increase more than 4 degrees Celsius compared to the pre-industrialized era. And the consequences are unimaginable. The global warming has already started giving us the bad signs. I think you have experienced these things. Landslides, excessive raining, long drought periods, cyclones, and so many things that we are gradually experiencing. Actually, Sri Lanka is ranked among the top riskiest countries of the climate change. Still, these extreme weather events are not that significant. They are not that much severe, although we experience a lot of damages from those. But if the climate change continues, the severity of these extreme weather events will increase, and at the same time, the frequency of occurring these extreme weather events will also increase. That will create enormous damages to our living and also making huge damage to economies. Therefore, it is essential that we control this climate change. And this climate change is mainly driven by our energy use. That's why energy has become such a hot topic today. Keeping that in mind, let us explore the evolution of the energy from our ancestors to the modern world and how it has driven this climate change today. The first use of the energy by our ancestors dates back to the period where our ancestors acquired the skill to control the fire or to tame the fire. And that is the first use of energy by our ancestors. There's a kind of a disagreement about the exact time period when our ancestors gained the skill to tame the fire. Some people say it's about 300 to 400,000 years back in the history, while some says it is as long as about 2 million years ago. Whatever the time period is, the skill the people gained to control the fire was quite instrumental in the evolution of the mankind, because that skill brought enormous advantages to our ancestors. Firstly, our ancestors could safeguard themselves from predators, and they could start living on the ground instead of living on trees, especially at night times. And also they could clear the caves quite easily, and dwelling in caves started because of the use of the fire. And also fire has helped them to live in extreme cold climatic environment and giving them many choices for living. But among these advantages, one of the very interesting hypotheses about the evolution of mankind is the cooking hypothesis. Professor Richard Wrangham from the Harvard University introduced this cooking hypothesis in one of his research publications. In 1999, he published a paper called The Raw and the Stolen: Cooking and the Ecology of Human Origin. In this research publication, he introduced this cooking hypothesis. What he says is, because of the fire, our ancestors used to cook their meal. Because they could cook the meal, they could excessively include meat into their daily diets. With this high dose of meat in their daily diets, that it brought a lot of energy for the people, and that energy helped the growth of the brain. And that is the cooking hypothesis Professor Wrangham introduced to the world. 10 years later, 2009, he wrote a book titled Catching Fire: How Cooking Made Us Human. In this book also, he discussed quite extensively about his hypothesis, how fire helped the evolution of mankind. Maybe because of the growth of the brain, our ancestors were looking into alternative energies as well. By 3rd century BC, they started to use the power or the energy of water, we call hydropower. But one of the disadvantages of hydropower was it was accessible only to a limited group of people who are living closer to a water stream. Our ancestors wanted to find a solution for that problem as well. Therefore, by the 7th century, they started to use the wind power. Wind power is a more democratic energy source because people can access wind power in many locations. The story of using energy by our ancestors, initially by using firewood to ignite fire, and then using water power, and then using wind power, came to a very important point in the 16th century. That is the use of coal. Actually, even before they used coal to ignite fire, but that is the coal that they pick from different places. It's not excessive use. But in the 16th century, because of the overexploitation of forests by English people, they wanted to find alternative energy source. Coal was cheap and readily available, so people started using coal excessively. Scientists and engineers produced steam engine. You burn coal and produce steam and use that steam energy to run various machines. And that was the first industrial revolution. Before the first industrial revolution, industry was quite small and it was scattered at different places, mainly domestic industries. But the invention of the steam engine and the steam power, people started building large factories and the massive production started to emerge. The use of steam power revolutionized not only the industry but also the transportation sector, because steam engines used for transportation as well. Steam-powered vehicles, steam-powered trains and steam-powered boats and ships, those things revolutionized the transportation. All these changes led to rapid growth in the economies and also rapid changes to the living styles, at the same time heavy use of coal and consequently heavy increase of carbon dioxide emissions. In the meantime, in addition to coal, people started to exploit oil and gases as power source. In the late 19th century, new form of energy was discovered, that is electricity. With the invention of the electricity, industrial sector again subjected to major changes. Factories become cleaner and safer and the productivity increased. Instead of directly using the mechanical power of steam engine for machines, people started to produce electricity and then use electricity as the major energy carrier to transform the energy of coal into the machines. This graph provides us a very good snapshot of our energy usage over last 200 plus years. There are very important information that we extract from this graph. First of all, we can see how our energy demand has dramatically increased, say from around 1950s. By the period of 1950s, our global energy demand was about 20,000 terawatt hours, and by now it has exceeded nearly 160,000 terawatt hours, almost 8-fold increase in our energy demand. At the same time, we can see the contribution from different energy sources, the contribution from coal, oil and gas. Overall, by now, nearly 85% of the global energy demand is supplied from fossil fuels. That is a very critical reality that we have to face. Because we are heavily relying on fossil fuels to fulfill our energy needs, we are releasing huge amount of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, finally resulting in climate change. That's why energy sector is very critical, and that's why it has become a very hot topic today, because we must combat climate change. Otherwise, the planet Earth will no longer be a livable place for mankind. The battle to combat climate change is creating quite a lot of opportunities in the energy sector as well as in many sectors that we can think of. Those are the things that we discuss as opportunities in the green transformation. In this video, we learned why energy has become such a hot topic today, as well as we learned the evolution of the energy from taming to the fire to today. In the next video, let us talk about some present scenario in the energy landscapes, how energy has driven the climate change. Let us talk with some global facts.